time here with Lace Out's Round 13 review. I've just got back from is it round 14 already? No, it's 13. 13. It is 13. It is the round 13 review. I'm a little bit hyped because I've just come back from the awesome Fight MND King's birthday game. What a result. We're going to get in that in a moment. But, ladies and gentlemen, we know Lace Out is not just a podcast for the masses here in the beautiful country of Australia. We are worldwide. At one stage earlier this year, we were the number 3 ranked sports podcast in Austria. That's how big we were for the football category. But we've reached out to one of my all-time favourites. He's been with the show virtually from day dot. He's one of my closest football friends over there in Sandusky, Ohio. It is Craig Wessels from the amazing A Yank on the Footy podcast. Great man. Welcome to Lace Out.
Good morning, Peps. How are you, sir? Or should I say good evening for you?
It is good evening for me, but 6:30 in the morning for you. I am pumped. Look, like I said, I've just come back from a football game which blew my expectations on multiple levels. Football this year is just getting better and better and better. The talk about it over here is immense. It was a great day at the MCG today. It was a great night last night at the MCG. We've had 7 cracking games over this weekend, and footy is in a really, really good position. But more importantly, it is great to have you on here. We've been organising this over the last couple of weeks since Jamie departed as a full-time host, and I said, I'm going to get you on. And we thought this would be the perfect opportunity where you were on a bit of a break. We had a nice little chat about it, and it's great to have you on too. So for anybody who can't see this, by the way, if you look, I know it's going to be hard to hear this and see this, but if you have a look behind Craig's shoulder, there's around about 22 jars of Vegemite, empty Vegemite jars all the way there in the US. Absolutely loves it just as much as he loves his Geelong Football Club. How's everything going over there in the US AFL-wise? Tell us what's the lay of the land over there, Craig, before we get into everything.
Well, I know that the US AFL has their national tournament coming up later this year down in Florida, where they'll have the 50 so clubs from the US down there playing in their nationwide tournament. We've had a few new clubs that have come in. They do a great job of promoting the game, but we're still trying to make headway here. And again, that's one of the reasons that I do my podcast, is to try to let my American fellow Americans know that this is an awesome game, and if you're as disgusted by the game of Major League Baseball as I am, this is a fantastic alternative.
What's the growth at the moment? Like, is it still niche, or is there more and more people bringing it into the fold over there in the US? There seems to be a lot more people looking at it on YouTube and having reactions to it and going, what is this absolute? What is this sport? What's the feeling over there, or are you still very insulated with the way things are over there in the US?
Oh, I'd say it's still very much a niche, because it's funny. I went to visit my son last week. He's an officer in the Navy, and he had gotten promoted. And I was driving back from where he lives, which is about a 10-hour drive. And I stopped at a rest stop, because when you're my age, you stop at rest stops on a rather frequent basis. And we'll go ahead and just leave it at that as to why I was there. But I'm wearing a Waratah Warriors polo shirt right now, but I happen to have a Tracy Village polo shirt on, which is, these are both clubs that play up in the Northern Territories. And I had that shirt on, and I had a gentleman saying, "Is that a rugby shirt?" And I'm standing at the urinal, because again I had stopped.
That's where the best conversations happen.
Exactly. Well, and I looked and I said, "No, it's an Australian football club." And he said, "Was that like rugby?" And I said, and I'm kind of focusing on business at the time, and I kind of turned and I ended up having like a 10-minute conversation about Australian rules football with a guy who is a member of the Pagans motorcycle gang.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got the black motorcycle vest with the Pagans logo on the back, and he was missing a tooth. And I had a great conversation with this guy.
So basically, you had a conversation with a Collingwood supporter. Well, that's we all have that. We tend to have that quite a fair bit. Hey, mate, you've got so much love coming through at the moment. I'm getting it from Craigie Jones, host of the Portraits podcast. Thanks for putting us in a spot to take first on the ladder this week. Happy to do so. Go Kansas City Power, I'm getting from him as well too. Buzz Demiri, we love Buzz. And his team, who have been shit killed for a little bit, have come back to the Saints. Great win on Thursday night. USA. And Craig said Pep's team would be the Boston Demons. That's what he reckons my team would be too.
Yeah,
so there is a lot of love for you on the chat as we speak right now.
Bill Robert will be very welcoming of you up there because he's been covering their games for a long time. But, Craig Jones, I do have to say that I hope it's a competitive game. I hope the Cats get a few players back because the Cats have Port and Melbourne over the next couple of weeks. So they are. I'm not going to be so bold as to say they're playing finals this year at this point in time, but they have got one hell of a gauntlet to run between now and round 24.
Well, if you want to have a look at that gauntlet, it's going to start right now because after today's game, there has been a massive shift in the ladder. Let's have a look at this. Top of the ladder, two teams, Collingwood and Port Adelaide, have separated themselves from the group up there at the moment. Melbourne have come in and they've got that 9-4 sitting outright third, and it was a game that they had to win this weekend. I know they say that. There's been a bit of a query on them. Are they a top 4 team? They've had a soft draw. And with about a minute and a half to go, you could almost say they've kicked themselves out of the game. We'll get in that shortly. Brisbane, the MCG curse, 13 out of 14 they've lost. They just turned up and got hammered by a team at the moment that everybody thought was tanking in terms of the Hawks, who were doing completely the opposite. That means St Kilda and Essendon also on 32 points, clamouring for that last spot in the 4 you'd think about at this stage. So it's going to get very tight there. Adelaide, a massive win over West Coast. The Bulldogs still sitting in 8th. Geelong sitting in 9th, one game behind with Fremantle and Gold Coast. Both those teams, Geelong and Gold Coast, having their bye on the weekend. Fremantle losing to a cracking Richmond game as well too. Sydney, bitterly disappointing. GWS did what they had to do against North Melbourne. I thought they'd be a bit tighter. Carlton, they're back, swapping all the way down to 15th. Hawthorn, well, we're going to have a chat about them because if there's one team at the moment that's saying we're not going to let the ladder stop us from doing anything, it's Hawthorn. And they could jump a couple of spots as well in the next couple of weeks. And then you've got North Melbourne sitting at 17th. And then you've got poor old lowly West Coast sitting in the bottom of the ladder. Craig, the way that you look at it at the moment, let's just focus on the top 8 side of things. Who do you see at your stage? And just from your humble opinion, who do you see coming in and who do you see jumping out?
Well, I honestly, I think that as we talked about off air, I think both of us would love to see Gold Coast get in there. And because I think it's great for that club, but I think it is also great for the league to basically say we've poured all this money into this particular club. We need to have some payoff for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's starting to happen now. And I'm looking forward to seeing, when Tuke Miller gets back, just, how, we talked off air, I mentioned this, to somebody the other day online. I said, if you were to say, okay, if I'm going to take any 3, midfielders from one club, I said, first of all, I think you would probably take the 3 in at Port. I think would probably be my 3 I would take.
They're good.
And then I think I would probably take those 3 youngsters from Gold Coast.
They're just playing with a lot more freedom now. And I think, funny enough, it's sometimes when a good player jumps out of your team like Tuke Miller has, it means others have to rise up. And they've done that. Like I said, we spoke about Anderson, we spoke about Raul coming in, but they've just, like, Charlie Ballard's got so much better. Bailey Humphrey, no one saw the rise that he's had so far this year. You get Ben King back. Like, they just got so many things that are in their wheelhouse. And if the awesome Tommy Roker was on, he would be talking them up to the hill. So I think they're a massive chance. They just have to win just more of those games that they should against teams in the middle of that range with them as well too. If they can win more of them, you're exactly right.
I think the Bulldogs might find themselves sliding out because there's a lot of talent there. They have, an equitable amount of talent as another team that wears an awful lot of blue in their color scheme. But they just can't seem to get out of their way sometimes. Their percentages is just barely over 100. You've got, the Cats, if they happen to catch up to them next week, are going to certainly leapfrog them because of the higher percentage. But it's just, I don't know. They scare me a little bit in terms of, them putting everything together.
Yeah, I think with the Bulldogs, their issue is that the coach changes things too much every single week, and it's hard to get stability with that as well too. And we thought that they would absolutely dominate from a forwards perspective this year, but they still haven't been able to really work that out. Norton, unless he fires, who else? Their small forwards are very hit and miss as well too, and a lot's left up to their midfield. So yeah, they've got a lot of work to do. Hey, Craig, a couple of things that have come off as well too. First of all, Craigie Jones has thrown this again. 6,856 days since Essendon have won a final. We'd have to bring that one up. Melbourne are going to lose to the Flag to the Bombers. Apparently, that's coming in from Charlie Keegan. Well, Charlie, you've got to make finals first, but I think you will. Top four is actually looking very cherry ripe for the Bombers. They've got a nice draw heading into the back end. And Craig Jones, some of the names in the US AFL are mint. Who wouldn't want to support the Grovetown Pirates?
Well, I have a Grovetown Pirates sticker on my desk in my classroom. Those are two gentlemen from the Augusta, Georgia area who started out with a YouTube channel watching the games and reacting to the games on YouTube. Steez and the Don are their names, and they started a club down there last year. And yeah, they are the Grovetown Pirates. And I have, like I said, I have one of their stickers on my desk along with my lace-up sticker on the back of my van.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, and I remember when you contacted me a while ago, you have got the original lace out sticker as well too. The black and white one at school as well too. So that's how far we reach out because, it's all about you guys and it's how you all want your footy. All right, big guy, it's up to you. We're going to spin some magnets now. We love getting into the magnets. Which one do you want to start with? Do you want to give the votes or do you want to drag someone? I'm throwing this one over to you, Craig. What would you like to do?
Well, I think it was you that posted something on Twitter the other day that was kind of a play on a recent documentary that came out. Instead of asking, what is a woman, what is a tackle?
Mm-hmm. It's
that
true.
was you, was it not?
That was me. That was me.
You.
What is a tackle?
Because we saw a couple of them this week that are both in line to be penalized, and I'm thinking, where is this game going to be in 2 years if either one of these, Dan Butler or James Sicily, if those two guys get suspended for the tackles that they made this weekend? I understand keeping, worrying about head injuries. I understand that. But what the hell else is Dan Butler supposed to do?
No one knows.
Is he just supposed to go up and do we get to the point in time where we just say, okay, you know what? Cody Whitman gave us a bit of an idea a few weeks ago when he couldn't, contain himself in his shorts. Do we just go ahead and just say, punch the guy there and say, okay, it's not technically a head injury. Now you're down on the ground. Free kick for me. And Sicily's tackle on McCluggage, another player ends up rolling onto McCluggage. Is he supposed to be responsible for the action of another player now? I mean,
we don't know.
You're a 377 game legend. Yeah, you're a 377 game legend. I've only been following it since 2016. I don't know what the fuck is going on, quite frankly. Okay.
But it is got. So I'm tipping, Craig. I'm tipping. You want to start with a little bit of this?
I think I've started.
Oh, sorry, a bit of this. All right. So we're going to the bed. And look, it's funny, as we were sort of talking through that, it came through from the magnificent Buzz. We love Buzz. His Saints are going all right. And Jules Julio, good to see you again too, my friend. What's your view on the umpiring? I had this as my number one with a bullet, and I'm wrapped that you brought it up as well too, because the umpiring at the moment, we got another umpire in this year. It's made no difference. If not, it's made it more confusing. But this whole dangerous tackle is, look, I understand it. The only reason they're doing it is from a legislative perspective, because if somebody gets a concussion, they can say, well, at least we addressed it. But it's gone way too far. It's gone way too far to the left where Dan Butler puts on a perfect tackle, no issue with it whatsoever. Blakey did go off, but it had nothing to do with the concussion.
Right,
he hurt his foot in the tackle.
Yeah.
A little bit earlier on. But that's gone, I think he got a week for that. That was a joke. You see McCluggage get tackled by Sicily, and he's actually tried to roll him over, maybe to stop him. But someone's come over the top, and I didn't get the name of it, who it was. How do you know that wasn't what caused the injury itself? There was even a collision on in the Fremantle-Richmond game as well too, where Aisha's headband was two guys literally going for the ball. Now, at the time, you saw the headband fly off, and that probably added a little bit of mayo onto it, but it was genuinely two guys going for the ball. I don't know whether he hit him in the head. I don't know whether he hit him in the shoulder. I haven't looked at the vision. But it is getting to the point that now it is so inconsistent, we've even given up. I saw one today. Joel Smith tackled one of the Collingwood players on the boundary. Dangerous tackle. It might have been Darcy Moore or or McCreary. Dangerous tackle. They showed it up on the screen, and even the Collingwood people behind me were going, "That has got to be that's got to be that's not a dangerous tackle. What's going on?" Even Buzzer said the Melbourne player today caressed Murphy to the ground and got pinged. It's just that when anything looks like a tackle, and a lot of these tackles are happening not within contested areas, they're usually one-outs, that's causing it. And as supporters, we have got no idea going on about it whatsoever. It is doing our heads in. And to sort of put this in perspective, Brad Scott got the job at Essendon, what was it, about September last year? I think it might have been. Yeah, after the final, September last year. We still don't have a head of football at the AFL. So no wonder the rules are going to shit, because the principal or the person who's supposed to govern these sort of things and look out for them, we don't even have one in place. Gillan McLaughlin's not doing anything about it. Andrew Dillon is still just in his first couple of weeks anyway. So as of physically, we have not got any idea, and there's no one to address it with. And so Michael Christian, who's got the guy who's looking after the MRO, he only has a guide sheet that he has to work between. And as soon as something looks dangerous, like we've seen, it go straight to the tribunal. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And like I said, forget about what is a woman. When I wrote last week, what is a tackle? Because at the moment, me, you, and probably everybody on this chat and everybody who's listening to us right now has got no idea what's going on. And people are getting frustrated to the point they're not even going to games anymore, because they just, it's the whole Forrest Gump, the tackles are like a box of chocolates. You just don't know what you're going to get, whether you're going to get rewarded or you're going to get weeks. It's out of control.
The one thing that I will say positive about umpiring is that it seems as though the getting their shorts in a bunch about dissent has seemed to wane a little bit. So it's not, so if somebody, turns and looks at them or raises their arms above their shoulders and such, we're not seeing 50-meter penalties for those things, which first of all, I think that 50-meter penalty is an extraordinarily harsh penalty. If make it 25 meters. If you instead of putting the ball right at the top of the goal square to I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that, because it's been a bit dodgy since they've brought it in. And we saw a couple examples during the week where people either stood literally where the umpire has told them, or they've creeped over by 30 centimeters, and they're penalised 50 for that.
Yeah,
the whole sniff test or the pub test, it's not there as well too. All right, who else do you want to give a whack, Mr. Wessels?
Well, I don't know if it's giving a whack, but I as I mentioned to you off air, I said I've enjoyed sledging on Richmond about the always complaining about having to make that long trek across, because you live in Melbourne, you know how difficult it is to get across that 20 kilometers of desert between Punt Road and Marble Stadium and that crock-filled river. And the last thing Gill did before he's stepping down is he opened up like a 100-meter wide area of broken Lego pieces that the Tigers players have to walk across barefoot to go play at Marvel.
It's tough. It's tough.
But since Dimma has stepped away, and I wish him well. He was actually in the U.S. He was in Denver, Colorado. I saw he was there watching a game, one of the Tigers games in Denver recently. And this is not to take a shot at Carlton supporters, but I can't say that I'm feeling awful about what's happening with the Blues right now, and them, basically creating a new music video for Tom Petty's song "Free Fallin'." Which,
well, like I said to you off camera, I had my 30-year high school reunion on Friday night, and one of the people who wasn't there was the head of football from Carlton Football Club, Mr. Brad Lloyd. He wasn't there for whatever reason, and probably would have been a good thing because I don't think there would have been. There was a few Carlton supporters who turned up that night, and I don't think you would have had too many ears left by the end of it as well, too. But yeah, there's a lot of frustration from supporters. I just think as a club, they're no good. There's too many people behind the scenes who want to get their name up in lights. Don't want to put their agates on the chopping board, as I would say, and put themselves on the board. They just want to be, I'll throw barbs, and because I pay a lot of money, you've got to listen.
Yeah.
My club used to be like that. Richmond used to be like that. A lot of clubs who have had success recently went through the bad times. Essendon have had it a bit as well too over the years. You've got to get it right off field, and then the on field side of things will take over. And they've been putrid.
And again, I've only spoken to one president of one club, and that was your club, Kate Roffey. I had her on when she got the job. I reached out to her on LinkedIn and just I played the naive American footy fan, and I said, would love to have you on, to find out what the role of a club president is. And like 2 days later, I have an email back, when do you want to talk? Yeah. And I talked to her for like an hour and a half. Yeah. And it was awesome, and just a genuinely wonderful person. And I think they're probably that many of the club presidents are, but I've not had the chance to talk with them. But she certainly seems to be that way, and
I think that says more about the club, and I reckon there's a lot of presidents out there that have their genuine heart for the club.
Uh-huh.
I just wonder if some of the presidents have their genuine heart for themselves, if you know what I mean. I'm going to raise a couple of other ones as well too. These have come in off the chat. I am going to mention Marlon Pickett. So if everybody's heard, Marlon Pickett's been charged for aggravated burglary. Like this one's totally come out of nowhere so far. Like where did it come from?
I think
if you have a chance to read a little bit more about this is really awful stuff. Like what he's been alleged to have occurred. We say the word alleged. Funny enough, someone said, Richmond weren't paying enough? Like, I don't know what would make him want to go ahead and do this, and I don't know, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But then the other one that came through, which I didn't even know about this, was that literally on the same night, and I've just got to double-check this before I go ahead with it, but apparently someone said, no, I don't want to say it. I heard another one before we got in here, so I might have to come back to it later on because I don't want to get myself in trouble. But apparently, someone might have been in a little bit of trouble as well. Okay, so who was from the same club, but I won't mention who that is until I confirm it because I don't want to get myself in trouble. But one other one I want to quickly mention. I don't know if you saw this at the moment, Craig, but this just goes to show how much these clubs are nuffies. Did you see Carlton and Essendon putting their premiership cups around the centre circle at the NCG?
I did, yes. I did.
What a bunch of wankers. Why? That was totally – it was totally out of bounds on the full. It was – I don't know what they were doing. They were peacocking something chronic. But both clubs have done nothing over the years. So are they just reminding, hey, you remember, we were good once.
Yeah.
A long time ago. This is what we play for.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
What was that number that was in the chat? It was over 6,800 days, right?
Oh, so we'll just go 6,800 days. 6,856.
Yeah.
With an asterisk, meaning to be continued.
And I am comfortable to say I believe they're going to break that streak before Carlton wins a finals game.
Carlton can't even win a game. They've got two gun forwards and they can't do anything with them. Their ball movement, Jesus. My bowel movements are faster than their ball movement at the moment. All right, hey, let's give a bit of this because this is what it's all about. We want to talk about the good stuff as well too, everyone. Let's talk about the 3 votes. Now, I'll let you go first and foremost, Craig, because you had a chat to me once again before we kicked off this gorgeous episode, the Round 13 review. You had some votes that you wanted to give.
Well, my 3 votes that I would give this week, and I think yes, he had a bit of a dumb hiccup a couple of years ago, and had to show some contrition for some comments that he made. But that was the first 10-goal performance that I have witnessed live with Tex Walker in game.
Are you talking about this?
I think I am. I'm not hearing it at my end, but
that's all right.
Okay. I'll hear it on the replay. But yes, I think that's exactly what I'm talking about.
It was bags. It was literally kicking the first 10. I think it's been the first 10 goals kicked since I think it's 2021. So it's been a while since a big Texan kicked 10.
Yeah, he would be my 3 points for this week. My 2 points would go to Tim Toronto, who had a great game out there against Fremantle. 35 disposals, 7 tackles, 7 clearances, kicked 2 goals himself. And then, we talked about Essendon, and Essendon has played pretty decent football this year in the great grand scheme of things. And somebody just mentioned in the chat they're not hearing it.
They didn't hear this. They didn't hear this.
I'm guessing maybe they still didn't.
I still can't hear it. Oh,
hey, dog, where are you?
What's going on? I can hear it. Well, that's the main thing. It comes out on the audio. So it's like, hey, listen, it's bags. It's all about the bags.
Yeah, I know. Yep. I know, because we're going to get into. I know you have the money one also that we'll be hearing. Yeah.
I hope so.
Well, yeah. But my third point was going to be 2-meter Peter coming back in after not having played a game this year. Did not play in the VFL. He just came straight back into the side and kicked 5 goals against Carlton. And you stick him out there with that club. I think Essendon, with Brisbane having dropped a couple games, I mean, a spot in the top 4 is still available for for them. They certainly could do that. Yeah,
got a cracking.
Those are my 3 for this week, and a little asterisk as far as a half a point.
Yep,
is Ryan Merrick, who 10 days earlier was playing in the VFL, if I'm not mistaken, and gets taken the number 1 pick by the Eagles, and kicks 2 goals down in their game that weekend, and just but of course, as you said, he's playing with the Eagles.
He's put himself up for trade. Yep.
Yeah.
He's put himself back up for trade, I think, as well. All right. So originally we gave our
3 votes.
Did you hear that? Hey, there we go.
Now we're going with a bit of
Haley off, Ellingworth on. Bloody weakest piss.
All right. That was what we did beforehand. Now we're going back to
3 votes.
And then we also had a bit of with Tex kicking. Bags. We love it when they're kicking. Bags. It's got to be 6 more. Oh, it was bags. All right, we got the audio back up and running. Jamie would be out of his mind by now. All right, couple of things. Collingwood supporters, it just goes to show you booed a 2-time Copeland Trophy winner, a guy that you signed up for a massive contract, All-Australian in Brodie Grundy. You know the best part about it, though, was the Melbourne supporters cheered louder for him today. So stick that up to Collingwood, because it just goes to show you got rid of him and you booed him. What does that say about you? You're actually booing your own club from that perspective. So
because
Melbourne,
if I'm not mistaken, Brodie Grundy did not want to leave Collingwood. If I'm not mistaken,
no,
they basically had to get out from underneath his contract.
Yep.
Like they did. Who was the other one that they got rid of for pennies on the dollar a couple years ago?
Was Jaden Stevenson?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
others the Atu Botasavongu a while ago as well too. Phillips they got rid of as well. So they did a bit of a fire sale. But I'll tell you what, he was an absolute gem with Gawn today. They destroyed Cox and Cameron today. So it was awesome.
I'm glad you added another name there, because that was going to sound really awkward if you just left it hanging like that.
Yeah, exactly. Craig Jones, awesome. Doggy supporters, like they've got half a brain cell among them anyway, as it is. But they booing Joyce and Horne-Francis, for no apparent reason. But they got Boyd after 1 year, who won them a flag. So you can't have your cake and eat it too, all right? Because it's just a bit dodgy, all right, Doggy supporters. So it's like, you can't have your Centrelink check and spend it too. It just doesn't work that way. That was right. So, all right. The Fight M&D Day. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to one. I've got my beanie on today, my Fight M&D 9 beanie. They are just one of the things that you have to buy. You go to the G and it is just blue everywhere. It is blue everywhere. I think they've raised close to $2.5 million for a guy that originally only wanted to raise $200,000 the first time he's done it. Neil Danaher has to be Australian of the Year. I don't care. Show my Melbourne bias or whatever. Don't care whatsoever because he is an absolute gem. And just the class of both teams for a guard of honour before the game to see him walk off. If you haven't had a chance, go to afl.com.au and check out the footage because that is what football is all about. Another thing I wanted to give some votes to. 2 metre Peter, he's going to be the difference maker for Essendon if they do anything this season. It's as simple as that. Like, he's come back, he's kicked 5 goals. He was literally one kick off. One kick off, guess what? He was one kick off being in bags. That's how good it was. So 2 metre Peter, awesome. St Kilda against Sydney, they had to do what they had to do. I could almost throw this game in the bin as well too because that first quarter, paint dry was more exciting. Port Adelaide gun football. We're going to talk about that in a minute as we get through the games. But the one thing I want to highlight was Hawthorn. This is a team that could tank. This is a team that could go for Harley Reid, but they've decided, no, we're going to play these kids. Mitchell made some big cuts at the start of the year, and a lot of people criticised him, including me. I think I tipped them to finish last. They are doing everything that a club would be excited about. And I really like what they are doing. And so Hawthorn, I'm giving you guys a pat on the back. I'm giving you some votes because you're surprised a lot of people, and I think they are setting themselves up nicely for when the Tasmanian team comes in. Stacking a lot of young kids, very similar to what they did when GWS and Gold Coast came in as well too. So they are my votes for this week. Craigie Jones is seeing the top 8 from here is going to be Port, Collingwood, Melbourne, Brisbane, St Kilda, Gold Coast, Essendon, Fremantle. I like it. And Jules Julio. And by the way, Buzz, I said that we destroyed the Pies. We did win by 4 points, but if we'd kicked straight, it would have been an 8-goal victory easily. But unfortunately, bad kicking is bad football, and we almost happened to throw that one away as well too.
Yeah, I would have really enjoyed watching your little rant on the way home, like the one the previous week or the week before. That one was an interesting one.
Yeah, the one the previous week, which had a little bit of fruity language.
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did. Apologies for that one, everyone, but that's how I felt. That's how I felt at that particular moment. So exciting times rolling in. All right, let's have a look at this week's game. So it is time to check out the Scoreboard. All right, Craig, let's have a look. The Thursday night game, it's so far away, thinking it's Monday night. The Swans versus the magnificent Swans. I'll be honest, I picked the Swans to win this. I thought they would have had a chance, but
so did I.
4 points. The first quarter was one to just go to bed about. Like that. If you ever wanted to just show football at its worst, that would be it.
Well, can I interject here real quickly? There's a couple of other guys here in the U.S. that do a show called Americans Watching the Footy.
Yep.
And their two brothers, and one of them said that if the first quarter of Sydney St Kilda was the first quarter of footy they ever watched, there would not have been a second quarter.
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
It was awful from the fact I've just never seen two teams. Now, you've got to understand, the SCG, my backyard's bigger than the SCG.
Yeah.
It is not that big. And for the ball to be sitting on each team's half-forward line, it just goes to show that it was just bomb it long, and no one was doing anything. It was stale. And it's been a long, long time since the Swans have ever not kicked a goal in the first quarter alone, let alone held scoreless. But that was not a great game that you'd want to. So, Buzz, I'm tipping you're not going to be watching that one on replay a fair bit, nor the Saints supporters. But they did what they had to do. They've got an absolute corker there, Mitch Owens. Oh, geez, I was lucky enough to get on him a little bit earlier for the Rising Star, and I'm a little bit happy at the moment. Hopefully he can take it out because I just love what he's doing. But Jack Sinclair was awesome. I think I was really impressed by Naziah Wanganeen-Malera. Now, it looks like he's put on a bit of size since his first couple of years. now he's looking like he can run through the midfield. So you've actually got a bit of spunk there for when Brad Crouch moves on. But they just took the game on when they needed to and came out with the win. You really can't ask for much more than that. And Maxi King did what he had to do, comes out and kicks 3 too. So just like 2 metre Peter, Max King coming in is going to hopefully set up the Saints for the rest of the year. But I just wonder whether the taxing way of Ross Lyon's game plan, will that cost them this year? Because it can be quite exhausting. Interesting sort of thing. How do you see it? 'Cause you've actually looked at all the games this weekend except for the one today. Understandable?
Yeah, like you said, this was an ugly game, and I have to confess that I was kind of somewhat pleased by this one because 3 of my midfielders on my fantasy team are with the Saints, and 3 of my forward line are with Adelaide. So I had a fairly decent weekend as far as that, including Tex Walker. So that went okay for me, although my ruck didn't play this week. Oh well. But no, I'm just impressed by what St. Kilda is doing overall, because again, this is a club that was just kind of mired and rudderless for a while, and I was still just trying to get over the fact that the Brett Ratton did not come back this year. I was still shocked. When I learned about the contract situation with him, where they don't end up having to pay off the contract that they signed him to, was just amazing. So that makes me wonder.
Well, it's a joke. Yeah, it's a joke. So players have this contract side of things that they can work out, but the maximum that you can get rid of a coach is 6 months.
Yeah,
remaining, which I think is a farce. You sign up a coach for a certain amount of time and you get rid of him, you should have to pay out the contract. That's bullshit in my opinion. If we were able to go back to getting some votes for getting dragged, that would be one of them as well too. And the fact of the matter, he's taken over from Clarkson. Sorry, I've got the wrong one. Sorry, no, Ratton again. He's taken over from Clarkson. He's getting paid an assistant coach's wage, not a full-time coach's wage, because he didn't see himself jumping in. So there's something that needs to be done for those circumstances as well too.
Right.
They're going all right at the moment. They're going all right.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're sitting 5 on the ladder, if I'm not mistaken. I think you went through there. So I mean, it's if you're sitting at 5 on the ladder, things are going well for you.
And it's not just about that. I must admit they do play a pretty taxing type of style.
Mm-hmm.
Just hope it can get towards the end of the season, because far too often we've seen clubs get to probably 6 weeks out and they start to go backwards. Mine was one of them last year. We just had nothing left in the tank.
Yeah,
last year, injuries wise, fatigue wise, etc. That's my only concern with St Kilda. But if they do what they did against Sydney on that Thursday night, you can't ask much more than that. Even though they were sitting 8-3 last year and then they fell in a hole.
Yes,
Sydney, where do you see them? Because they're in a really interesting spot, aren't they? They're in a they're in a unique situation because they've got one of the absolute legends of the game who is still occupies the mind of the defense, but they're looking at it from the legendary standpoint. Buddy Franklin can still kick a set shot when he gets the opportunity to do so. But, and again, I feel strange, talking about people being of an advanced age when they're young enough to be my own children. But, they're kind of in a little bit of limbo because it's likely that this may be his last year. And, you've got some young players, I was excited to see what, Joel Amartey was doing in his position before he blew out his hamstring during the gather round. He had a couple of really decent games there. I think that Sydney could rebound rather quickly because I think there's a lot of talent on that side. And I'm not trying to push Buddy Franklin out the door at all, but I think that when Buddy decides to hang up his boots, I think that's actually going to work out to their advantage from a salary cap standpoint. Yep. And
from being able to just have a lot more flexibility in the forward line as well.
Well, they'll get $1 million in their salary cap pretty much when he comes back. I think the interesting thing though is I look at Hayden McLean, who he was clunking him early in the game as well too. So they should have used him as the deep forward, but they put Buddy back. And, it's almost you robbing Peter to pay Paul. Have Buddy up forward, but then I think McLean should have gone forward to give them that better option, because going against Will, you need somebody who takes contested marks above his head, and Buddy doesn't do that. We've known that for virtually ever since he started. He never took marks above his head. So I think that might have been a better option, but, hindsight's 2020, isn't it? So I think they won't make finals this year. St Kilda will. How far they can go, I'm not too sure, but they've definitely taken a bigger step than they did the year before. And Donna J, great to see you, and thank you very much. Go the D's. It was a great day today. All right, Western Bulldogs, Port Adelaide. I think I actually gave the Dogs a massive, massive chance for this one, but unfortunately, Port Adelaide, I think that's 9 in a row at Marvell Stadium, 22-point winners.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen a streak of great football being played probably since Gary Ablett on his second Brownlow when he was up at Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
But Connor Rosie is putting together his last 8 weeks. Like, if he's not winning the Brownlow, he's definitely a couple of votes in front. Because
do you mean him or Butters?
Oh, Marge. I mean Butters. Yeah, he did.
Okay.
You're right, Marge.
Okay.
Sorry, Craig, the Portress people, the Port Adelaide's. Yes, I'm talking about Zach Butters. Marge. He's just spreading everybody apart at the moment. He has got literally everybody on toast.
Well, and the thing is you look at him and Rosie, and you almost think you would have to, check their ID to see if they're old enough to buy bubble gum. I mean, they look like they're about 12.
They've got spunk about them too. Like I remember the first game, 2019, they were pushing Max Gawn around a bit. First game they were playing. And they were still doing that a few weeks later, or a few years later as well too. But Butters is unbelievable. Like, and you're right. You watch him and you go, this kid's a nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you always talk about the nerds are the ones you have to worry about. Yeah.
Well, he looks like one anyway. Yeah.
Too, but Butters,
and,
goodness.
And we talked about off air.
What about the hyphen? Vaughan Francis.
Yeah.
You talk about those three in your midfield. Woo!
Yeah, it is just, and you look at last.
No, damn it!
You look at last week where Tim English absolutely blew up against the Cats. He just and I'm looking at it from a fantasy league standpoint. He ended up scoring because guy I played against had him as a captain. He scored 380 points against me as the captain in the fantasy league. And Scott Lysette took him behind the woodshed this last week. 43 hit-outs to 20. It's just and Lysette always looks like one of those until he shaved that mustache off. He looked like one of those guys you'd see in the long leather jacket in the cowboy movies and such. It would walk into town and everybody would run inside the buildings to because he looked like one of those bad gunslingers. But he I've mentioned on my show quite a bit, and I know there's like a courage award that gets awarded each year, something along those lines. If they have not already engraved that with Jeremy Finlayson's name on it, I wonder what the hell is happening at the AFL House if his name is not already on that award.
Yeah, he's I can only imagine what he's going through, but for him to be able to compartmentalize that, he's the last month of footy, and I'm only going from what I've noticed. Before that, saw him in and out a little bit. We knew he was a bit of a mobile, bit of a hybrid, forward, back, whatever. His last month has been just sensational. They were just sensational, and you just look at Port at the moment, and I think that's a club record 10 in a row. My concern is like Collingwood today, they're going to have to drop one. I can't see them getting to 18 in a row before the finals hit, or 17 in a row before the finals hit. So I think that's going to be a bow too long. And you don't want to go too early. The last thing that you want to do is peak in June and July. But there's something about them at the moment. They're playing. I thought Collingwood were playing the best footy in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They blew away Hawthorn the week before, and they've gone away and blown away the Doggies as well. It was 27 scoring shots to 20. The inside 50s, they smashed them in. But when you look at someone like Butters, who has 31 at 55%, 531 metres gained, it's just the way he does it. And he's so clean. There was one, even Horn Francis, just the cleanliness at the feet. They beat the Bulldogs at their own game. The Bulldogs like to run the ball. When they get on a tearaway, they are absolutely amazing to watch. And the Bulldogs, like, they've got once again, they've got the Ferraris in the middle, but unfortunately, they're playing like Ford F-150s in their forward line at the moment. And why the hell they dropped, I think it was dropping Keith and Bruce for this week against Dixon, Finlayson,
and Marshall.
Al Pepper, Marshall. I'd love to be a fly on the wall with that conversation. No, we don't need you this week, boys, because we don't think that they've got a forward line that's going to be one that we have to worry about. Imagine going out to your mates and going, I've been dropped. Can I also say one thing as well, too? We were talking about umpires a little bit earlier. I think I saw the worst ever decision given on the goal line. So if everyone remember Cody Waitman, really late in the game, Cody Waitman had a bit of a snap going over the line, and Oscar Baker came in and collided on the goal line, and the ball went through. Umpire came in and said that was a push. Now, I don't know if you've seen many of these, Craig, but it is literally two men enter, one man leaves, Mad Max Thunderdome stuff. On the goal line. Like, there's push, there's shove, there's shepherding, there's everything. That's not a free. I don't care, because I know the port guys are saying, no, it was a free, didn't have eyes for the ball. It doesn't matter. You can pull people off the ball. You can push them. It doesn't matter. It just made no sense. But they didn't pay it as eyes for the ball. They paid it as a push. And I just does my head in when they pay ticky touch with ones like that. And there's more obvious ones that let to go slide too. But I reckon you're right. I reckon the doggies are in a heap of trouble. That starts to ask a question about Bevo as well too. And the same questions time and time again. And will they sign up Kenny? There's no hurry to sign up Kenny. We get that.
Yeah, well, he certainly doesn't have to be, because he can always, they can keep coming to him and say, hey, here's the contract we'd like to present you. And maybe they've already done that. It just hasn't been reported.
Yep.
But he could be, he and his agent could be saying, we're going to keep our powder dry. We're going to look at our options at the end of the season. But, we may very well want to come back here again because I think, if he decides to stay there, I think he's got a club that's set up to be pretty decent for the next, several years, especially with that young midfield right there. And, I know Charlie Dixon's getting up a little bit in age, but Marshall is a very solid. He was my pick for the Coleman this year till he got concussed. But which I've had to, of course, my Coleman and my Brownlow selections were Marshall and Duke Miller. So how did those go?
There's a Nobel.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Not well. The only thing I could go with is this. That's pretty much I can go with that as well.
But Duke Miller was my pick last year, and he finished third, so I felt pretty good about that. Yeah, and Ollie Lord is.
They got more selection choices to make. Moving over the next couple of weeks, so they're in a cracking position once again. Early on, 6 weeks out is solidifying your spot on the ladder, and then going over there. So it's just I think the doggies are in a bit of trouble. Port, like I said, Jamie was cloud 9 after the win on the weekend too. So, good on to all the Port Adelaide supporters out there. Enjoy the ride because, we've seen it before, but there's something different about Port Adelaide and the way they're playing at the moment. You want to talk about a team that was played, I reckon this was the best game on the weekend just because of how important it was for one team to win. And they didn't do it. And they didn't turn up again at the MCG. We're talking about the Brisbane Lions. Hawthorn dominated this game. Like, they didn't just win, they dominated. Winning by 25 points. I know Jules Julio would be absolutely high-fiving himself, slapping his McBeef steak because of what they rolled up. There was one name that stood out, and I had to have a look at this, and he got the 9 coaches' votes. It's Connor McDonald. He played his 11th game for the year, his second second year in the ones. This is a perfect example of what Sam Mitchell is doing. If you have a look at some of these names that he is rolling out, we're rolling out names like Connor McDonald. Let me just go through some. Connor McDonald, John Newcomb, Dylan Lockie Bramble, the Warpedo. James Warple has had a better season than his last couple. Connor Nash. Who else have we got? I mentioned John. Will Day. Mitch Lewis and Kaczynski had their best games in front of goals, kicking 4 and 3 each. Now, if they'd kept Gunston, if they'd kept Mitchell, if they'd kept O'Meara, all these sort of things, would they be able to? Would they have been able to get these games into these kids and really surprise? They played attacking, fast, switching. Brisbane were never in the hunt for this one at all, and that's what footy's all about. They expected to turn up. They expected to do it all, and they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it was, Charlie Cameron was basically non-existent for the game. I know he kicked a couple goals, but you hardly heard his name at all. It's just, there's a lot of talent in Brisbane, but I think when they head to the south to go play in Melbourne, it's like they go through some sort of like a little time warp or something where they just really scuffle once they get there. And until they can win in Melbourne consistently, I don't know if this is a really a premiership side.
They're like my kids when they were 4 and 5 years of age. They don't travel well. They're no good. They can't travel. And one of the things that really stood out to me is when Ned Reeves and Lloyd Meek had 36 hit-outs between the two of them against McInerney. And McInerney, the schnoz, he goes all right, but they put it to their advantage. And then that hardened up my guy, John Newcomb. I can understand why Hawthorn invested so much into him in the mid-season draft to get him.
Mm-hmm.
He is another level. It just goes to show you can use the mid-season draft to pick people and bring them into your club who can make a difference right away. Like he went at 28 disposals, 71% efficiency, 477 metres, 9 inside 50s, 12 contested possessions, champagne showers. He was the main reason to get them over the line as well too with Connor McDonald. But, and I also now feel sorry for Sicily because he comes back after 1 week, has an absolute ripping game again, kept Danaher to basically nothing. And then he gets done for a tackle, which looked pretty innocuous when it happened.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the result, and again, this is where we just don't know the answer. We don't know what's going on, but the result of, McCluggage ending up concussed.
Yep.
They have to look at it. Was Sicily's tackle the cause of that? Or was it the contact with the other player that was rolling through there?
Yeah.
And again, if I don't think you can penalize Sicily for that. And certainly if you've got somebody that's coming through, although we did see Mitch Robinson get rubbed out for a game last year for standing still.
Yeah.
Which I'm still, I mean, that one still boggles my mind that he got a week for standing still.
For the same thing, standing in the same spot.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Patrick Cripps knocked the bloke out and got off.
Well, I just sent you a link to a new sticker that I put up on my.
We'll put a link for the sticker, the Lockie Neal AFL Brisbane 2-time.
Yes.
Probably mean let's put a sticker in that. So support.
Yep, as it said, winning the Brownlow twice is very appealing.
Yeah. Funny man.
I'm enjoying sledging on those Carlton supporters a little bit there.
Nothing like a good sledge. But yeah, Brisbane have got a lot of work to do. Hawthorn, they're going in the right direction. 4 wins.
I would love to say that Brisbane could fix all their problems if they would just give Nakia Kakatu a game. I would love to say that because
he's your favorite.
He's the guy that made me a Cat supporter. So it's yeah, because I don't even think he gets to play. If he's named as an emergency, I don't think he gets to play in the lower game. So he's
normally they play them on the day before or the day after. So if they're played as an emergency, they'll get to play.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully, because
Do you know who didn't play on the weekend?
Cats.
West Coast.
Yeah.
West Coast.
No.
I'm not going to spend too much time. When you go down by 122, one of the biggest margins I've seen in quite a long time, when you have 39 scoring shots to 12, mind you, they did kick quite accurately of 8 goals for. It was just that Adelaide kicked 27-12, which made it a little bit difficult. There's not really much more to come out of this besides Big Tex. Had 7 at halftime. I thought he was going to have 12 or 13. Come out with 10. First 10 that we've seen, I think, in almost 3 seasons. They're going all right. They're going all right, Adelaide. I think they're fantastic at the Adelaide Oval. Anywhere else, I don't think so. So I think that's what's going to catch them up. They're very much like Brisbane at the moment. At Adelaide Oval, outside of that, they tend to struggle a bit. But, Tex, they thought was finished a couple of years ago. These last couple of seasons have been sensational, except for when he chats to people at local football games.
Right, yes.
Yeah, but he was awesome. Rory Sloane, Ben Keys, Rory Laird. I don't know if anyone's actually seen Rory Laird. He is short. He is tall, but he can just get the footy. He had a casual 34, 20 of those contested. Absolute freak. But, we were chatting about Adam Simpson. I genuinely feel sorry for the bloke.
Yeah.
Because he only had 25 fit players to choose from. It's not his fault the players can't get out of the park. It's not his fault they consistently get injured. And they showed some of the images of him in the coach's box, and it was just, ugh, it was just.
He looks despondent.
Yep.
I just. Is it against the rules for the senior coach to put up one of those one-way mirrors? The two-way mirrors up in the coach's box where he can see through the mirror onto the ground, but the cameras can't see in. So he could just sit there, giving the cameras a single finger salute, that sort of thing.
The broadcasters wouldn't have any footage,
right? Yeah,
they wouldn't allow it because. But yeah, that's distressing. I've seen supporters go through that as well too, and it's really hard. It's really hard when your club nothing is working. I can't see them winning another game for the remainder of the year. To be honest,
can he have himself a self-imposed mask mandate?
He could.
Yeah, I mean, could he put a really big, a big mask or one of the ones that the Mexican wrestlers wear?
Yeah, he could go a Lucha Libre mask. He could go maybe a Tyson.
Yeah, where he
film, so
exactly,
maybe or a Michael Myers type mask because they are a horror show at the moment. But there's not really much to talk about this guy.
You can still see his eyes. You can still see his hand gestures. You just can't see the rest of his face. But he's there.
Maybe he just should wear a hoodie. Maybe if he wears an hoodie or a poncho, we just don't see anything.
There you go. That would work. That would work. But yeah, I will say though, to me a positive, and I think Oscar Allen is going to be a good player for them.
Yeah, he's good.
But it's just and Tim Kelly's had a decent year as well. But it's just there's so many other holes right now that I don't see them winning another game.
And this is the thing though, Craig. We're going to go to the draft. They're going to have the number 1 draft pick, and we know the number 1 draft pick is going to be Harley Reid.
Right.
Pretty much down pat that he's going to get it. Honestly, it would be a waste for West Coast to take Harley Reid. They're better off selling that number 1 draft pick and maybe getting 3 players in who can make a change rather than 1, because it's going to be a waste because after a year he'll want to go.
Yeah,
I just get 3 players in that want to be at your club and do it that way. What wasn't a waste was Richmond's great win against Fremantle over there. I did pick Fremantle for this. I thought they were a shoo-in. But Richmond's under McWalter, 15-point winners, 10-10, 70-12, 13-85. One guy who apparently is no good, Tim Taranto, just another amazing game, 35-2. He had 35 touches and only took the ball 214 metres, so a lot of short kicks and a lot of handballs. So that means to me he was bringing a lot more players into the game, like the guy, Shea Bolton, who had 33 but went to almost – I don't think I've seen it yet where a person's gone a kilometre in metres gained, but he went at 925 metres and he was the Shea Bolton that we saw in his All-Australian year. He was sensational. Jaden Short kicked 3 and 3 big bombs outside of 50, which is like we love to see a bomb, but that was old school Richmond. It was the knocking it on forward. It was Cochin getting his hands on the ball. It was Jaden Short getting his hands on the ball. It was Nick Vlaston commanding down back as well too. It was the Richmond of old, and they were strong and they were bold. And they were
Jack Rewalt kicked 2 goals, 3, but he was in a lot of contests. I saw him rolling around on the ground with a lot of people as well. It's just it's almost like he turned the clock back a little bit in this game because again, there's somebody who this may very well be his last year as well.
Mm-hmm.
We may see some huge changes at Richmond next year.
I reckon.
Well, and unfortunately, some of them, some of those changes may not be, decisions made by the club, but they may be made by somebody else. But we won't go any further into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we spoke about that a minute ago. Yeah, as well.
Yeah,
that might be the boys in blue, not the black and gold, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But, look, this is a game that Fremantle should have won, and probably came in thinking that they had this one on toast. But yeah, just really, really disappointing. Look, Luke Jackson's last probably a month of footy. It's probably been, I'd go top 10 in the league. I'd go as far as that. He had another 33 hit-outs on the weekend. He had 23 touches, 2 behinds, but he was just everywhere again. And he is loving the fact that no Darcy's in there. So this question of having Darcy and Jackson is the whole Gordon Grundy. I think Jackson plays better as a single ruckman by himself. But then the question is, if you can get something decent for Darcy, would you trade him out?
Well, that's the interesting thing because I'm still learning, the ins and outs in terms of some of these things. But I did see some reports that supposedly the Cats have offered him $1 million a year for 5 years. Now, I don't know if that was somebody just putting that out there that doesn't know anything, or just putting it out there for the sake of putting it out there.
There's no cash here. Here, there's no cash. All right? Cash, no. Robbo?
No cash.
There's no cash. Geelong do not give out $1 million contracts.
Right, yeah.
Cameron, so don't read into that one at all. But
yeah, I because that's something that I have noticed as being a Cat supporter is that it seems like a lot of players will take a little bit less money to go play there.
Yeah, they go.
The fishing must be really, really good there.
Fishing is really good down there. The farms are really good, but what they do is they tend to go back to the Geelong Falcons. Mm-hmm. So a lot of players from the area who are guns, they get them back because they know, hey, you want to come back? We want you back. You know what the area's like. Win-win.
Yeah.
I'll take a little bit less to be home. It's like another interstate club down there. It's like a better version of Tassie down there at Geelong. And that's why it's a fortress. It's an absolutely strange ground. It's very narrow wings. If anyone follows the Essendon District Football League, it's very much West Coburg-like, where the wings are straight. It's a challenging ground to play football at, but they play it really well. But so Fremantle, they shot themselves in the foot this week. There's a few teams that shot themselves in the foot to solidify whether it was a top 8, top 4 spot this week too, and Fremantle are another one of those too. But they'll bounce back quite quickly as well too. Getting through these ones semi-quickly. Look, GWS, they were against North. North, they are playing better football than North.
Yeah.
Sorry, West Coast, they are playing better football than Carlton.
I said about this one in my preview list last week. I said that North and GWS was a preview of a 2026 prelim final.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
I just think that right about that time, these two clubs are going to be ready to start making that push.
Yep.
Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I just kind of I was just trying to generate some conversation with it too. But I remember this at GWS. And there's nobody there to converse about it.
No, they've got a guy I would love to be kicking the ball to, Nick Larkey. Like you got to pick this guy. This guy was, I think, a pick. He was in the range of 50 to 70. Like that's how far back he was. His hands and his kicking is immense. Like he kicked another 4. I picked him for the Coleman at the start of the year. I thought if he can get enough supply, he's a massive chance. And I think he is still a massive chance. He just needs to get a little bit more of it as well too. But some of their kids that have come through, like we know about Larkey, Taron Thomas. We know all about the issues that he's had. absolutely stunning. Like pick 73 like he was. Taron Thomas, like high draft pick, had a shock and run of it, self-imposed, let's be honest.
Yes.
Like he's back, and that's what we want. That's what we want to see. You've got Miles Bergman. I was watching him a little bit on the weekend. He didn't get a lot of it, but there's some spunk about him. You've got Bailey Scott, the other hyphen, Callum Coleman-Jones. They've got another forward there. Some of the names like Eddie Ford, Wardlow, and the Cheezel, my goodness gracious. Like, it just goes to show, if you can nail 2 kids in a draft, it can make a massive change. That's what West Coast should be looking at. Like, if we can get in 2 guns. Paul Curtis. Griffin Logue was great for them last week as well too, but they were just too good, GWS. They just had that little bit of extra X factor. And my love child, Toby Green. If there's anybody in the league I would love to have at my club, it would be him. Him and Larky. I'd love any day of the week, those 2.
I'm gonna call you out on this one because you mentioned this in your review of last week, and there was a Collingwood player that you mentioned, Brody Myachek.
Yep,
he's the one I would love to have Myachek on my side.
Yeah,
he's not outstanding at everything, but he is pretty damn good at absolutely everything, and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I mean, he's just a phenomenal. I think he's a phenomenal player. I would love to have him on my side.
He is a mid-'80s Toyota Hilux. Doesn't look sexy. No one's going to drive one for the sake of driving it, but I tell you what, it's never going to break down. He's always going to be reliable. He's always going to take you where he needs to, and you're right, but just Toby's Toby, and there is a Toby tax, but he's the best thing there.
And I think it's been a win-win for GWS this year by naming Toby Green captain and taking it away from Stephen Cornelio, because I think Cornelio has begun to thrive without the pressure of being captain on him. And I think that the club has started to take on just a little bit of Toby Green's persona, even though he has throttled it back a little bit and has not been making the decisions that he's made in the past, if you will.
He's been sensational. And there was a young guy, not a young guy, he's early 20s, Kieran Briggs. Like, he was playing in the ruck. I think it might have been his 11th game on the weekend. Actually, his 9th game on the weekend in total. And just dominated the ruck. Now, you're going against a guy like Todd Goldstein, 300-plus games, and he held his own on the weekend. He picked up 9 coaches' votes as well too, but he had 16 touches. He had 20 hit-outs, that which was 21 had to Goldstein, but it was just work around the ground. He was just everywhere, like 78% game time, 11 contested possessions for a big guy. Like, that's what you want out of a big guy. It's not about – it's down the ground marking. It's putting it down your teammates' throats at rucks, but also getting the ball when they need to. And, they've got another nice one there, and you're right. Tom Green did what he had to do. Was he proficient as last number of weeks? No. But, even someone like Callum Ward, like he's had knees, he's had every injury under the sun. He just still keeps ticking. Like, he'll go down with Green as the best ever Giant, I would say, and probably Jeremy Cameron. He just does his thing week in, week out, and he's almost getting a bit of Grange. He's almost getting a little bit better with age as well too. So they're getting a lot out of themselves at the moment. I think the appointment of Adam Kingsley has made a massive difference. So North didn't win, but there's a lot to take out of it, and GWS still give themselves a slim chance at making finals. But we don't.
Right. Yeah, and GWS is, they've had a couple games where they've looked a little wonky, but for the most part, they've been pretty darn competitive all year. And I don't think, if you're a club that's battling for a final spot and you get to like round 20, 21, 22, and you see GWS on your schedule, you're going to come with that with some trepidation, because that's a club that's going to come punch in the mouth.
Yeah, my team's got them. Later.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So I'm okay with that as well too. Yeah, but they've got some spunk about them. One team that hasn't got much spunk about them is Carlton, and I think we've spoken enough about them, so we're not going to give them any more bagging. But they're pretty.
Oh, come on!
They are not much better than West Coast. I'll be honest. Like, I even had a Carlton supporter Friday night said, "I've got tickets to the game and I'm not even going." That is how bad they are. So I'm not going to talk about Carlton because everybody else can talk about them. I want to talk about a team that I have given so much grief over the years to Essendon. I they are going all right. Like, they're going better than all right. And there's a young guy. Now, you got to remember, this guy got picked up in the supplementary draft at the end of the draft because no one wanted him.
Mm-hmm.
He came on, he kicked 5 in his first game, and then on the weekend, he's almost going to be the All-Australian wingman. We're talking about Nick Martin here. 30 disposals, 76%, 12 contested possessions, but as a wingman, it doesn't really matter. He's just everywhere. And, you throw him there. You got Peter Wright, Jai Caldwell. Darcy Parish doesn't play. Shield doesn't play. You think Essendon were cooked. These young guys are really stepping up. And I know Dodoro cops it a fair bit, and I've given him a bit of stick over the years. They are doing everything really well. And I would hate to play Essendon right now in finals because they are now that Peter Wright's back and a fresh.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well,
they're going really nicely.
And you never know if you're going to catch. You never know if you're going to catch Jake Stringer on one of his days because if you do, he's going to throw 4 or 5 goals up on you, and you're going to go, where the hell did those come from?
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. He didn't have his best game on the weekend, but when he needed to fire, he did.
Yeah.
Sam Wiedemann, Sam Wiedemann on the weekend, he didn't dominate. He had 14 possessions. But the thing is, he was making contests. He doesn't mark it. That's one of the reasons that Melbourne got rid of him because he doesn't hold his marks. And it happened again. But he's making more and more contests. And that's what's good about it is that Essendon do have that smaller brigade around the feet for them to be able to pick that up. So they're going all right at the moment. It was also good to see Jaden Laverde play his 100th game on the weekend as well.
And I have to give a quick shout out. The head administrator, the principal at the school where I teach, he is my first official convert to footy. And he chose a couple of years ago to become an Essendon supporter.
Yeah,
so,
he's not going to appear on this podcast, but that's okay.
He's pretty stoked. He's got his kids watching the games as well. So, he coaches football at our school as well. But he's really gotten into footy. And he's texting me all the time, and of course he's busting my chops when they're beating the Cats now. And
But I was really, really happy with. We've spoken about this a little bit on here, and also off the chats. And for any of the Essendon supporters, I've mentioned this. Ben Hobbs, he got picked up. He's been in. He's been out. Good to see him actually have a nice run at it on the weekend, and they've got one there as well too. Ben Hobbs, he was amazing. 24 touches once again, 7 contested, 7 inside 50. He's probably playing on the other wing. Yep. Essendon, you're going all right. And with the draw that they've got, they are a massive chance for top 4. So I think maybe 3 of the spots are locked in after today. I think that 4th spot is still up for grabs. Still up.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the D's are locked into 3. I mean, they could maybe make a run and make it into the top 2, but of course, Port and the Pies. Well, you've already beaten the Pies, so
yeah.
I don't know. Do you guys play the Pies the second time this year?
No, we don't play. We play Richmond again, but we don't play the Pies again. But we played them today. And it was a great win by the D's. Let's be honest. We were there. That's why we're running a little bit later than we normally do the recording of this because it was a 4-point victory. Good to see Melbourne almost kicking themselves out of it. 8-18 to 9 goals, 8. So they've had 26. So they've had 9 more scoring shots. This should have been at least a 6-7 goal win. They were all over them probably from the 15-minute mark onwards. And it was just relentless pressure. And one thing about Collingwood, who play a really awesome brand of footy, and you would have seen this, their run and gun through the middle of the ground was completely stifled by the D's today. I would have said that 15 minutes into the game when they kicked the first goals, but then Melbourne made the adjustments, and it was just a great game of football. Good to see Melbourne almost stole victory from the jaws of defeat. Defeat from the jaws of victory again. Yeah. They're very, very good at doing it well too, but.
Which, I have to be honest, your little posts after Melbourne defeats are much more fun to watch than the ones after victories. But I'm glad I didn't have to see it this week. But was a lack of DeGoey in the midfield a big because again I haven't watched this game yet, but was that a big contributing factor to them today?
No, because Melbourne had no Oliver. That's a good point. That's a good point. They had no Elliott. We didn't have a Petty. I know they were down a couple, but Melbourne down a couple as well too. I just think, look, to be honest, Carlton, they've had a bit of both teams have had soft runs for the last 5 weeks. I'll tell you what, from a game perspective, it was almost finals like. It was just hard hits. And when they always say, like, when finals time, players stand out. Jack Viney, a mate of mine, Heathy Buxton, we love Bucko. He gets on here occasionally, gives us a bit of a chop out, throws a bit of a comment in there to store up something. And he said it perfectly. He goes, I thought Jack Viney was done, but he's just getting better. And he was the perfect example. He got the Neil Danaher Award for the most courageous player today, the best player on the ground. And he was sensational. If you get a chance, just some of the contests throughout the day, like he had 32 and 19 of those contested.
Wow.
Kicked a goal. Like, he was just immense. Mr. Reliable Jack Crisp, the same sort of thing. Like, he was brilliant as well too. Petrarca, a little bit lower, but he still had 15 of his contested. But I think Melbourne, what they did is they were really desperate and really were in Collingwood's face. But the also thing that they other did was Melbourne can be beats to the honeypot, and you've heard this before, where they tend to go in quite heavily, trying to then track the ball. They sort of waited a little bit. It's an interesting one. It is an interesting one. Now, Craig Jones has made a comment here. I still think these big games need to be spread to the other teams. Well, I do agree and I don't agree. The Queen's Birthday one's been going on for quite a long time, and you've also got to remember, Melbourne was shit for a lot of those years. I think this was like they've won 8 out of the last 9 games against Melbourne. So Melbourne were putrid. We almost had this game taken off us a number of years ago if we didn't get better. So I do agree that maybe, but I don't see a problem with Anzac Day. I don't see a problem with this. I think it's up to clubs to make games of them. But I do agree that every club should have the right to a marquee game. That's why I'm, with Good Friday, it has to be North Melbourne. I don't care who they play. It has to be North Melbourne, maybe St Kilda, maybe the Bulldogs, but not a big club, because I'm just sick and tired of the big ones always getting it. But outside of that, Melbourne that was the most hungry I've seen Melbourne play in a long time. When you see Scott Pendlebury fumbling and missing targets, the pressure index would have been through the roof. I will say, watching not Keira Knightley, more live, he's good. Like, he is good. He is exceptional. But yeah, they're Collingwood's hard nuts. Crisp, Mitchell, Adams, that was their 3 best players. They were the best 3 players, And look at Melbourne. Lockie Hunter, cracking game for the club. Probably his best game for the club so far this year. Down back, Salem, Made, Lever, the back 6, they were point like a toiger. And that's what it was. I think that was the big difference, is that every time Collingwood went down, it was really difficult outside of, like I said, the first 15. But Melbourne, like I said, they could have won that game. And I did say that they destroyed them by 4 points. If they'd kicked straight, it would have been over. But, even if you have a look from the hit-outs perspective as well too, Brodie Grundy had 26 hit-outs, like dominated around the grounds. Darcy Cameron had 13, Max Gawn had 17, and Cox had 12. So when you've got 43 hit-outs to 25, that is a decimation of biblical proportions. And then so it was a game that Melbourne needed to win, and it was also just to remind people that they can play. Have they got issues up forward? Yes, but the midfield and the back half of the ground is sound.
Well, can I? Because again, I don't live in Melbourne. I've never been to Melbourne. I'm hoping to be there next year.
Well, you will be.
That's why I'm walking my ass off at work right now, so I can do that. But as far as rotating the clubs, I know that that in terms of membership, Collingwood, Essendon, Richmond, West Coast this year anyway are up there in terms of the biggest clubs in terms of memberships. I mean they're looking at this from like driving ticket sales, correct?
Yeah, look,
is that the idea behind that? So
but I'd say also that we had 83,000 today, 83,000 last night as well.
Right.
That's like, and for Melbourne to get 83,000 for a home game, like brain explosion. That's like awesome. It's all about driving eyes to the screens. And so that's why they get the marquee slots.
Right. So, I know that, next year the gather round is going to be back in Adelaide.
Yep.
Next year, which I think it was a great weekend of footy. But, do they, will they look to rotate that? Because I know that there's a lot of grounds for, that are set up to, Norwood Oval, I think is one of the ones that's over there that they played at,
It'll depend on what games they put on.
Yeah.
It'll depend on so Gold Coast and GWS will get thrown out to somewhere. I reckon the showdown should be played during gather round. That's my theory.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, I'm wondering, that maybe do they look at doing something, and I don't want to tick off Craig Jones here, but do they look, and again, I think next year would be great to have it in Adelaide because it looks like it's a wonderful setup for that. But do they look in terms of priming the pump for Tasmania? Do they look at maybe hosting the gather round in the next couple of years in Tasmania and sending all of the clubs there to, and maybe, get it maybe puts in the mindset of the people that live in mainland Australia to travel to Tasmania to go watch their club play down there, that type of thing, to maybe drive the tourism aspect of it as well.
I think why Adelaide works, it's almost like in the middle of everything.
Right.
Middle of Perth, middle of Melbourne. My brother drove 8 hours, he got there.
Mm-hmm.
It's too, the furthest you have to go away is Queensland. And really, Queenslanders don't travel. We saw that with Brisbane this weekend.
Well, I mean,
you also have to have enough.
The club didn't travel either, but yeah.
But you have to have enough grounds as well, too. So until that stadium gets built, you couldn't do it because you wouldn't have enough grounds for the games to be played at.
Okay.
The rugby league do it over here. That's where they have a magic round and they play all games at the one stadium. We couldn't do that. I don't know why, but because our games go a lot longer than 80 minutes. I like to think, I'll be there for 3 years and then I reckon they'll change it up and put it somewhere. But they have to, they probably maybe go to Perth, but you want to try and get people to the games. And I think Perth's too far. I don't think it'll be in Melbourne. It might go, I wouldn't mind one in New South Wales. I reckon New South Wales would be good. But get to some of the regional areas in New South Wales. Maybe in Melbourne, go to a few regional areas as well too. I don't know. I don't think they'll do it in Victoria because we get, quite a fair bit of it every week too. But Tasmania, once they get that ground built, there might be something there. But for the next 3 years, it's going to be in Adelaide, and I think we all have no issue with that as well too. But
yeah, I think you're right. But
like I said,
in terms of trying to promote it, it would be I think it might not be a bad thing for them to do because I don't think they want to repeat the mistakes that they made with Gold Coast necessarily.
Yeah, I think
which I don't think is going to happen with Tasmania because the Tasmania, that's much more of a footy state.
Yeah,
you're not having to dig your way in like they have on the Gold Coast.
They should have had a team literally before any of those two, to be honest, but they just never did. They just got pushed to the wayside, and it hasn't been smart because it's a 50-minute plane flight to get there. It's nothing. Like you go there for the game, it's just like flying interstate. It's awesome. But look, to finish up for this game here, I think both teams can take something out of it. I think Melbourne gave everyone the reminder, and it also gave Collingwood a chance to say, okay, you know what? Where did it go wrong? What do we need to improve on? But overall, you could say out of all the games this weekend, there were eight cracking games. Maybe one of them wasn't all that crash hot when we talk about Adelaide and West Coast, but it's a great round 13 of footy, and you can't ask for more than that. Easy done.
And next week, I think there's only 6 games next week, though.
Yeah, it's a really strange one what they do. So you have 8 rounds, and then you've got 6 games. There's 6 teams with buys. I don't get it. I'd rather just have one weekend, no footy. Everybody gets to buy at the same time. Leave it at that. None of this.
Well, somebody had mentioned
that's what we use.
That it should be that everybody has to buy on the same week, and you just promote the hell out of local footy that weekend.
I said that.
Maybe
just promote. You bring local footy, regional footy, everything.
Yeah, you bring. Maybe you bring in some of the good country footy teams. Maybe you bring them in to come play at the MCG.
There's no reason why we couldn't. We just
bring them in.
Just stop it for 1 week. Just stop it.
Bring them in to play at Marvel.
Yep.
unless their nickname happens to be Tigers, then you don't do that because they're not going to be happy with that either.
They don't go there.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Wessels, so we're about to wrap this bad boy up, but before we do, a yank on the footy, what's the plan? Just tell us some of the guests that you might have coming up, some interviews you've got ready, because you know what, everybody's sitting here going, this American is pretty cool.
I'm actually, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning here. Tonight at midnight my time, I'm going to be sitting down with Cole Hutchinson, who was the chief statistician for the AFL for a number of years, a huge Cat supporter, so I'm looking forward to that. I've got several irons in the fire. It's been a bit of an adjustment with me actually working in the summer. I teach school, and I haven't worked in the summer for a number of years, which my wife gets pretty ticked off about. Yes, the
statistics by Cole Hutchison.
Yes, that's
just showed the AFL season guide up on the screen if anybody's trying to figure out what we're doing.
Yep, it's I've seen the cover. I've never seen the inside of one of them though. But yeah, I know that
makes us sound so much more intelligent than we are. What Bible?
Well, yeah, I have somebody I'm going to be talking to here soon that came up with a really interesting proposal with regards to the salary cap to try to level the playing field with clubs to help clubs at the bottom of the ladder move up and to try to bring about more parity in the league. It was kind of interesting. I'm looking forward to talking to him, but I mean, I love talking to just, everyday fans of the game to find out what makes them tick, what they love about it. It's I've had some big guests on here, as I mentioned, having talked to Kate Roffey. Still my favorite interview that I ever did on my podcast was way back, like 6 months after I started it back in 2019, is I had Ricky Nixon on, and it's still my favorite interview that I did because
I mean, when I chatted to him, same thing.
Because of what was said afterwards, where, he told me that nobody had ever asked me questions like that before, and I appreciate it.
Good, isn't it?
Because I knew all of the other stories that had transpired, and I hadn't been following the game that long. And if I knew them, I wasn't going to dig up those things. So we got into all kinds of other things, and I will trade messages with him online, and talking to somebody like Barry Cheatley, who worked with the Roos for decades. There's just been so many wonderful people that I've spoken with, and people in local clubs, and because I love I love to feature a local club at the beginning of each episode and give a shout out to them, and that's because even though I've never seen the games in person there before, when I come next summer, I'm hoping to be there. Summer for me anyway. I'm hoping to be there for at least 3 weeks, and I want to go and go watch games at the MCG, Marvel, hopefully Cardinia Park. Want to make that drive to Adelaide to go see a game over there as well. But along the way, I want to go see some of these local clubs that I have spoken to on the podcast, and just to see because those local clubs they're like the hub around the wheel around that community, around how that community rotates, and it's just awesome to hear the stories and just how much love there is for that club there. And it's just it's fun being able to just share that, because not everybody does that, because I know I get caught up in the AFL games, of course, and now with the AFLW having switched their schedule, I don't get to watch as much of that as I want to, because that's also when I'm also announcing soccer and football here, so I don't get to spend as much time watching the AFLW as I want to. So I feel like I'm always shortchanging them, and I feel guilty about that. But I'm just so grateful to everybody that has shared your great game with me. It has not simply said, "You're an American, leave us alone. Let us don't bother us." Because I'm not going.
We share it with everybody. It might be Australian rules football, but it's everybody's football, and that's the way that I look at it as well.
Yeah.
Too. Hey, listeners, that's our round 13 review with the amazing Craig Wessels, all the way from Sandusky in Ohio. Yes, he's not recording from Australia. Yes, that is an American accent that you're hearing. A yank on the footy. I'll leave a link in the show notes. I'm telling you now, get onto it. It is an absolute corker. I think he's got episode 269 dropping in very, very shortly too. So have a listen for that. But Craig, I've spoken to you many times before, and every time we talk, we always go over. But there's one question, and one question I have for you, and it's simply this. Craig Wessels from the Yank on the Football podcast for the AFL Round 13 review. How do you want your footy?
I want it lace out. I want it lace out, man.
He's got it. See, you even get it better than some of the Aussies. There you go. Have a great weekend. I'll be back for Tipped Out this week. Last week I was pretty putrid. This week I'll be better. Tune in. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Tell all your friends we're the best. You're the best for listening to us. Have a great week of footy. Catch up with you soon.
Cheers, Peps.
See you, legend. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Place Out. Head over to iTunes and Spotify to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, join us every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on our Facebook page with yours truly, Christopher Pepper, and the co-host with the most, Jamie Wallis, giving you your footy how you want it. Place Out.